Sarah Outen deserves a place in this country's illustrious roll call of adventurers and explorers, from Francis Drake in the reign of the First Elizabeth, to Francis Chichester, Ellen MacArthur, and, to name another of our honorary graduates, David Hempelman Adams, in the present reign. If it is ever suggested that the 21st century world is too tame and offers none of the personal challenges available to earlier generations, Sarah Outen's story rebuts that claim. At the age of only 24, she became the first woman and the youngest person ever to row solo across the Indian Ocean, a journey of 3,100 nautical miles. That's 5,741 kilometers for the non-sailors present, a feat which took her 124 days. Let us pause for a moment to consider that. Rowing an average of 30 miles a day for 4 months, and not in boating lake calm, but in all the weathers that an ocean can unleash. How does anyone come to launch herself on such a grueling experience? Surely none of the graduating students in today's audience has ever been distracted from an academic project by looking at their emails. But that was apparently the case with our honorand. As a biology undergraduate at Oxford, she was engaged in just such procrastination when she received an email headed "Ocean Rowing Races," and as she has said, she was hooked. We should, however, look a little further back for the origins of Sarah's attraction to challenge and adventure. Her mother, Helen, who is with us today, says that she was always adventurous, drawn at school to a wide range of sporting activities and achieving the Duke of Edinburgh Gold Award. Family holidays focused on the British outdoors, walking, climbing and camping. A competitive streak, vital to her ability not to be beaten by the elements, was also apparent and lay behind her decision at the age of 12 to join the local canoe club in order not to be outdone by her brother Michael. Sarah's father, Derek, was an RAF officer, and her early life was peripatetic. His career was brought to a tragically early close by the onset of rheumatoid arthritis, and the family settled not far from here in Rutland. There is no doubt that Derek, who died in 2006 when Sarah was still at Oxford and had just begun to plan her first adventure, was a formative influence and the inspiration behind her dedication to that expedition. The story of Sarah's crossing of the Indian Ocean from Australia to Mauritius in her 6-metre rowing boat, Dipper, defies summary. She was forced to restart, was thrown overboard and nearly ran aground on a reef, had to avoid being knocked about by flying fish landing suddenly on deck, and often found that hostile weather left her frustratingly further from her destination despite a day's hard rowing. Sarah would claim that chocolate played a vital part in her ability to cope with such setbacks. But her naturally cheerful and defiant spirit in the face of adversity was a far more important factor. For ordinary mortals, the completion of this remarkable challenge would have satisfied any ambition, but a quiet life at home was not for Sarah. A new test was called for. Somehow she conceived a unique plan to row and cycle 25,000 miles round the Northern Hemisphere, from London to London, crossing 2 oceans, 3 continents and 14 countries. Starting in 2011, she finished this journey, for which words like adventure and challenge seem pitifully inadequate, in 2015, just a little later than was originally planned. In the course of it, she was shipwrecked in the Pacific, survived terrifying roads in Russia and China, a close encounter with the bow of a cargo ship, and evaded snakes and grizzly bears, and of course endured all the extremes of weather that was available. The journey was extremely demanding, both physically and mentally, but a particularly uplifting moment came when Sarah proposed to her girlfriend by satellite phone from the middle of the Pacific. One suspects that, important though this degree ceremony must be, her recent marriage to Lucy, who is also with us today, will greatly outrank it in her memories of 2016. Some might say that expeditions like Sarah's are pure madness. Indeed, the word bonkers has been used. But it shouldn't be assumed that our honorand is either crazy or self-indulgent. She is strongly driven by concern for others. Forced to spend the winter in Japan, Sarah worked as a volunteer in Ishinomaki, helping people rebuild after the earthquake and tsunami of 2011. Many charities have benefited from their association with her expeditions, most notably those carrying out research into arthritis or supporting people with the condition. When the Queen appointed her a member of the Order of the British Empire, it was for services to rowing, to conservation, and to charity. Sarah takes great pleasure in sharing her experiences, helping and inspiring others, particularly young women, to have high aspirations, to seek adventure, and to overcome adversity. That pioneer of Everest mountaineers, George Mallory, is reported to have said that he did it because it's there. But Sarah quotes Sir Wilfrid Thesiger, "It is not the goal, but the way there that matters, and the harder the way, the more worthwhile the journey." Sarah has shown us that taking the hard and challenging way brings reward not only to the traveller, but to those of us inspired by her example. Mr. Chancellor, on the recommendation of the Senate and the Council, I present Sarah Dilys Outen that you may confer on her the honorary degree of Doctor of Laws.
Well done indeed. Terrific. Many, many congratulations. What a wonderful story.
So, having spent quite a lot of time over the last few years in a tiny rowing boat, all alone, way out to sea, I'm finding this just a little nerve-wracking today, because there's 1,500 of you, brilliant people out there. And one of the things I like to do when I feel just a little nervous is to take my shoes and socks off. So I hope you'll indulge me just for a moment whilst I do that. Now, having recently got married, somebody also said to me, take it all in on the day. Have a good look around at everybody there. And I'm going to do that today as well. I know that I don't know most of you, but I feel we're connected somehow, and I'm really proud of that. And I'm honoured to have been awarded this degree today. So thank you. Now, who'd have thought by the age of 31 I would have spent more than a year of my life alone at sea, particularly given that I come from Rutland, that landlocked county down the road. Now, you've heard that name twice now, and you'd be forgiven for not knowing where it is, because I still often get asked, what is Rutland? But anyway, what I want to say is, you don't always know what's going to happen next. You don't always know where life is going to take you. And I think that's a good thing. I remember just before I graduated from university, in a meeting with my principal, he said, Sarah, what are you going to do next? I said, well, Principal, I'm going to row across the Indian Ocean. That was my plan. And he said, yes, but what's next? As though somehow that wasn't quite enough. Now, I didn't have a long-term plan at that point, but I just knew that being guided by values and instinct and what felt right in here, that way would lead on to way, and somehow everything would be okay. And as was mentioned, that journey across the Indian Ocean in 2009 inspired and empowered me to think of another journey. An even bigger one, perhaps, but the bigger bit wasn't really the point, I suppose. Maybe it was being slightly naive at 24, thinking, well, I've just done that. Surely it wouldn't be too different to do that, and that to come all the way home. I think it's about the style rather than the form that's important. So we imagined that journey, rowing and cycling and kayaking, would take 2.5 years. And as was mentioned, it took just a little bit longer. I was rescued from the North Pacific after a tropical storm ruined my boat and put a cork in the party. And I diverted up to the Aleutians on my second attempt, rather than heading across to Canada. But there's a story that I want to share with you from the journey that's far more important than all of that. It's the story of a young Chinese man called Gao, who I met in the summer of 2011, probably about now, as I was cycling across the country. And he'd seen my big bike outside the petrol station, laden with all the gear. And he came in full of enthusiasm and nerves, his big shaggy hair. He said, "Ni hao, is that your bike outside?" I said, "Yes, it's Hercules, the adventure bike." "Wow," he said. "And where have you come from?" "London," I said. "Wow. And where are you going?" "London." "Wow. Cool," he said. And Gao, this young Chinese guy, said that he would like to make a bicycle journey one day. But he didn't know how. It looked too difficult. He didn't know if he could do it. Like many of us, the doubts and the what-ifs were the loudest voices in his head. And so I said to Gao, "Oh, no worries, buddy. It's just like riding a bike. Just get a bike and go for it. That is the most important thing. You'll figure the rest out on the way." And so we wished each other luck. I headed one way on my bike, and he headed the other in his car with his family. Half an hour down the road, as I'm cycling along, who should appear but Gao. "Sarah, wait! I want to come with you. I want to ride a bicycle with you to Beijing." I don't know what you know about China, but I was in the west over here, and Beijing was way out here, 2,000 miles away. My jaw dropped a bit, and I thought, what on earth are you playing at? How is that going to work? And meanwhile, while I was thinking how I could let him down in a sort of Britishly polite fashion, he was reeling off why he should come with me, why it would be so brilliant. "Sarah, you be the leader. I'll be the guide and the translator. It's okay, it'll be a great adventure." And something sort of flicked in my head, and I said, "Well, okay, sure you can come. Lots of people have helped me on my journeys." I was thinking I should do the same for Gao. And so I said, "Let's meet in 2 days' time." At which point Gao said, "Right, I'll go and buy a bike." I mean, how cool is that? Can I come on your adventure in a couple of days and I don't even have my bike sorted yet? So I said, "Well, have you done much cycling before, Gao?" "Oh, you know, a few kilometres, a few miles." So I wrote him a bit of a shopping list. And 2 days later, we met. He had sorted his bike, which, on my urging, he chose a name for, and that day he declared it was Stranger. I thought that was apt, but his bum was going to be no stranger to that saddle in just a few miles' time. And he'd shaved his hair off, ready for the journey. I said, "Gao, how are you feeling? Are you excited?" He said, "I'm always excited." He was so nervous that the poor boy couldn't eat lunch, but he got on his bike and off we went, his massive Chinese flag billowing behind him. Because he'd seen the flags on the back of my bike, which again, kind of Britishly understated, about this big. And his brother had said to him, "Gao, you need a Chinese flag, but it must be bigger than Sarah's." And so, over the next 35 days, we cycled along through the Gobi Desert in China, which, by the way, is really hot. Who knew? His massive flag billowing behind him. 2 weeks into the ride, he told his parents where he was. I think it was a couple of days into the ride when he said to me, "Sarah, I'm sorry, I lied to you on that first day. I haven't just graduated from university. I quit university because I wanted to do something more meaningful with my life." Now, I'm not telling you that now because I don't think what you've just done is not meaningful at all. That came out in all the wrong order, didn't it? But I mean to say, there he was, following his dream, not doing what someone else had told him he should have done. There were times I wasn't quite sure if we were going to make it to Beijing because Gao's bike kept falling apart. But I was so happy and so proud and so excited when, on that 35th day, after 120 miles on the bike that day, we rolled into that big city together. And I filmed Gao, and I asked him if he could sum up the experience in 3 words. And he said, "I am happiness," which kind of made me cry a bit. But I hope that's what you guys are feeling today, and that you're proud of what you've just done, and you're excited and empowered by it for what's going to happen next. I said to Gao, as my kind of closing remarks in that little film that I was making of him, what's your advice for people when they've got a challenge or something they want to do next and the doubt is niggling away? And Gao said, if you want to do something, just do it. Don't worry about anything, just do it. And so that's what I wish for you as you go out and onwards on your journeys now, is to be unafraid of taking risk, to accept and embrace the chance that it's not always going to go quite right, because actually quite often things not going quite right turn out to be the most wonderful parts of those journeys. Don't be afraid of asking for help. Don't be afraid of having another go if it goes wrong. Just go out there and be like Gao. Very well done and congratulations. It's an honour to share this day with you, and I wish you the best of luck.